The morning sun was barely warming the pale streets when a frail little voice stopped the crowd like a sudden gust of wind. People were rushing, horns were blaring, and vendors were shouting, but the small, trembling voice rose above all of it, a voice so thin it sounded like it was fighting for its last breath. The girl stood barefoot on the cracked sidewalk, dust clinging to her ankles, hair tangled like it hadn't been brushed in months, and eyes that carried stories far heavier than her tiny frame could bear. She looked no older than 10. She gently tugged on the jacket of a stranger passing by and whispered words that shouldn't come from a child's lips. She said that if she sang well, if she tried her very best, would someone please give her food? That one question fell like a stone into the heart of the street, making the noise fade for those who heard her. It was a question full of hunger, full of hope, and full of the kind of desperation that makes even grown men go silent. Before we continue, if you believe every child deserves kindness, warmth, and a second chance at life, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Kindly Tube. Your support helps spread stories that remind the world to care. The day was bright, the sun high enough to reveal every detail of the bustling market, but somehow, everything around that little girl felt dim. The girl's name was Soraya, and she had been surviving on the streets for almost 2 years. No one knew her story. To many, she was another forgotten child swallowed by the city's noise, but to herself, she was someone still hoping to be seen, still dreaming that one act of kindness might change her fate. Every day, Soraya wrapped herself in a thin brown shawl she found in a dumpster months ago. It was torn on one side and smelled faintly of smoke, but it gave her a sense of comfort, a reminder that she still belonged to something, even if it was just a dream. On this particular morning, when the city was full of weekend crowds, Soraya gathered enough courage to stand near a fruit stall run by a man named Kaysen, someone who looked stern at first glance but carried a softness in his eyes if one looked long enough. He was tall, with a neatly trimmed beard and suntanned skin from years of working outdoors. He was arranging oranges when he heard Soraya's shaky question. He paused, the orange still in his hand, and turned to see her looking up at him with expectation and fear intertwined like threads of a fraying fabric around them. People moved, uninterested, as if children begging for food were simply part of the scenery. But Kaysen wasn't like most people. His heart tightened painfully because the voice reminded him of his younger sister, Mila, who had passed away years ago. That familiar tenderness rushed back, overwhelming him. He gently asked Soraya what she meant, and she nervously told him that she could sing. She didn't know if she was good at it, but she knew she had nothing else to offer in exchange for food. Her voice trembled as she explained that she wasn't asking for money, just something to eat, an apple, a bun, anything. Kaysen didn't laugh. He didn't brush her off. Instead, he nodded quietly and told her she could sing if she wanted to. Soraya's chest lifted with cautious relief. She stepped back slightly, smoothed her hair behind her ears with trembling fingers, and inhaled deeply as if gathering the last fragments of courage left inside her. When she began to sing, her voice was soft like morning breeze brushing against leaves. The melody was simple, the words fragile, but the sincerity behind her voice wrapped around everyone who stopped to listen. Her song wasn't perfect, yet it carried longing deep, raw, and haunting. Even the vendors who normally never paused for anything looked in her direction. Kaysen felt something shift inside him. He couldn't believe how someone so small, so hungry, and so alone could create something so pure. When she finished, Soraya looked up with nervous eyes, unsure if she had done well enough to deserve even a small piece of fruit. Kaysen didn't just hand her one apple, he filled a small paper bag with bananas, bread, a bottle of water, and 2 oranges. Soraya stared at the bag like it was more treasure than food. Her lips parted in disbelief. No one had been this generous in so long that she almost didn't remember what kindness felt like. She slowly took the bag with both hands, as if it might disappear if she moved too quickly, and tears filled her eyes, not loud or dramatic, just silent drops slipping down as she whispered thank you. Kaysen told her she could stay near his stall if she needed shade. He didn't pry, but he offered her a place to rest because something told him she hadn't truly rested in a long while. Soraya sat down on a wooden crate, clutching her food bag like it was precious. As she ate small bites, trying to save as much as possible for later, Kaysen kept watching her out of the corner of his eye. He noticed how she flinched when people walked too close, how she looked around constantly as though afraid someone would steal her meal. This was not the behavior of a carefree child, this was the instinct of someone who had been fighting for survival. As the day continued, the warmth of the sun softened into afternoon light, and Soraya stayed near the stall. She didn't ask for more food. She didn't beg. She simply sat quietly, humming tunes to herself, weaving melodies as if the music protected her. Customers noticed her presence. Some smiled, while others looked away, but no one disturbed her. Later, when crowds thinned, Kaysen approached and offered her another piece of bread, not out of pity but to show her she was welcome. Slowly, Soraya began to trust him enough to share pieces of her story. She explained she once lived with her uncle, but he worked long hours and couldn't take care of her after his own hardships grew unbearable. One day he left, saying he would return, but he never did. Soraya wandered into the city, believing she would find help, but instead found a world that rarely stopped to care. She slept under bridges, behind food stalls after closing, and sometimes in abandoned buildings. She learned that singing was the only thing people didn't immediately shoo her away for, so she clung to it like a lifeline. Kaysen listened quietly, each word deepening the ache in his chest. He had lost people too. He knew the taste of loneliness, but seeing it in a child was something he couldn't bear. Without making promises he couldn't keep, he told Soraya she could come back every day. He said she didn't have to sing for food. She could simply come because she deserved kindness, not because she earned it. Soraya's face lit up with a glow he hadn't seen before, soft, hopeful, fragile. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. Days passed, and Soraya returned each morning. She helped Kaysen by handing small bags to customers, sweeping around the stall, organizing fruit crates, and humming while she worked. Her humming soon turned into singing, and people started coming not just for fruit but to hear her voice. Children gathered around, enchanted by her gentle melodies. Older customers praised her talent. Some even left tips which Kaysen kept safe for her in a small tin box. Soraya was no longer invisible. She was becoming a familiar piece of the community, someone people looked forward to seeing. One day, a local music teacher named Arwen stopped by. She had short black hair, sharp eyes, and a calm voice that carried authority. She listened as Soraya sang while arranging fruit, her voice soft but naturally beautiful. Arwen immediately recognized the rare potential in the girl's voice. She approached Kaysen and asked about her. When she learned Soraya's background, she felt her heart twist. Arwen had spent years helping children find confidence through music, but she had never met someone with such raw, unpolished talent combined with such heartbreaking innocence. Arwen knelt in front of Soraya and gently asked if she would like to learn music properly, if she would like to be taught. Soraya hesitated. The idea felt too big, too unreal. But Kaysen nodded reassuringly, telling her it was okay to dream. Soraya finally said yes with timid excitement. Arwen offered to teach her for free, thus began a new chapter. Soraya attended morning lessons in a small community center with a sunny courtyard where birds chirped loudly and children played. She learned breathing techniques, rhythm exercises, and simple melodies. Her confidence grew day by day. She began smiling more, walking with straighter posture, feeling like she belonged somewhere at last. People around the neighborhood started recognizing her progress. She became known as the girl with the voice that carried hope, the child who once begged for bread but now sang songs that uplifted tired hearts. Kaysen made sure she always had enough to eat. Arwen made sure she had a future to look forward to. Soraya, for the first time in her life, felt seen not as a burden or a street child, but as a human being deserving of love and care. Weeks turned into months. Then, one bright afternoon, Arwen invited Soraya to perform at a small local event in the park. It was a daytime gathering where families sat on picnic blankets, children played, and sunlight danced across the grass. Soraya trembled with nerves as she stood behind the small stage setup. But when she stepped out and saw Kaysen smiling proudly in the crowd, she felt warmth rise in her chest. She sang, and her voice, steady, emotional, full of life, floated through the park like a gentle breeze. People stopped talking. Children froze mid-play. Even those who had never seen her before felt something stir inside them. When she finished, the applause was loud and heartfelt. Soraya felt tears on her cheeks, but this time, they were